I'm really happy that you chose to attend this session. The second generation packaging is one of the key strategic products of Salesforce DX, and we're very happy to talk to you about this in this session. Before I get started, I have a heartfelt round of thanks for all of you. I've interacted with many of you over the course of time, and a lot of things that we're doing, both in second generation packaging and in Salesforce DX, is a direct result of the engagement and the enthusiasm that you have, both when you give us positive feedback and critical feedback. So thanks a lot, and I see a lot of familiar faces who have helped us take this product forward, and we want to feed off this positive energy and continue to make progress. With this, let's get started. I'm Dilip Berkey. I'm one of the product managers associated with Salesforce DX initiative.
My name is Jeff Bartolotta. I'm the lead engineer on this project, and I just want to echo Dilip's thanks for your attendance and also all your feedback. We really appreciate it.
I think this slide might be more relevant for this session compared to most of the sessions. Almost everything that we're talking in this session today is forward-looking, so you'll have to discount all these things when you're making any purchasing decisions. In terms of agenda, we want to talk about packaging, the state of the union as it exists today, then introduce to you, so we use packaging 2 and second generation packaging interchangeably, both when we talk and when we document this. The core vision and the key feature set, we have a fairly long demo that we want to show to showcase what second generation packaging can do, talk about timelines and migration. Just about anyone that I talk to about second generation packaging immediately asks me the question, what happens to my managed packages? What's the migration plan of action? Am I forced to migrate? So we'll address that. And then we'll have Q&A. If we can't answer all your questions, we'll wait for you outside the room, and we can continue the interaction. Before I get started, quick show of hands if you're an ISV partner that builds and distributes apps on AppExchange. Okay. I expected that would be the 75%, 80%. Quick show of hands if you're a partner that does not list on AppExchange, that does not develop apps. Okay? It's very good to know. And show of hands if you're a Salesforce customer and not a partner. Okay? The great thing is with second generation packaging, we are doing everything to address all these 3 constituents. So that's one of the fundamental shifts when it comes to second generation packaging, whereby not only you're an ISV partner, but even if you're a partner not listing on AppExchange, if you're a Salesforce customer, you can benefit from the stuff that we are doing. I'll take the next couple of minutes to give you a quick state of the union with first generation packaging. The managed packages that we're all familiar with is the one that is a technology that drives AppExchange, the technology that drives partner business. So we're very happy with it, and we will continue to iterate and improve and enhance it in upcoming releases. There are a lot of things that we have done with respect to making the usage of managed packages in Salesforce DX context much easier, and we'll continue to invest in that. Having said that, it's very ISV partner-centric, which we want to fix as part of second generation packaging. It's a very org-centric development model, which does not render itself naturally when you're using modern tools and when you want to iterate really quickly. The third thing is, if you have a small team of developers that are co-located, developing with managed packages will be easier, but once you start having large distributed teams, it's difficult to iterate and release software. The second thing comes with this, and I know I'm preaching to the choir when I'm saying dependent. You may have more strong language here. Basically, when it comes to the development experience, I've been on calls where it's a bit depressing in terms of how hard it is to do dependent package development. And on the installation side, it becomes very challenging when we constrain that you can have only one package associated with an AppExchange listing. And I don't need to go with shared Apex global code. You know about this. OK, so with respect to second generation packaging, what's the core vision? And I want to take a pause here. It is both for enterprise customers and for Salesforce partners. We're expanding the scope of packaging. It's not only to package and distribute your apps and metadata, it's also to organize and manage it. So in a pure customer scenario where you may not want to distribute your apps and metadata, we will provide rich constructs for you to organize within the production instance that you own so that it becomes much easier for you to take advantage of packaging. And second generation packaging is completely designed keeping Salesforce DX in mind. So the source of truth here is the version control system, is the source-driven format used in Salesforce DX. There is no packaging arc. We're completely getting rid of it. With first generation packaging, we first built the UI, and then we iterated on providing you API support. Second generation packaging is end-to-end API and CLI. In fact, we don't have UI that we'll have to build once we build the CLI. And finally, scratch arcs is something that has very strongly resonated with Salesforce DX beta and pilot participants in terms of the capabilities it offers to provide a good development model. In a few minutes, I'll be showing you a demo, and you can see how when you combine manageability with scratch arcs, for the first time, there is a truly compelling development environment for your developers to work with managed package code. In terms of dependency management, this is something that we have invested a significant amount of time. You can have multiple packages be associated with a single namespace. In fact, as you start adopting second generation package, you might find it's going to be more and more of developing smaller packages that are all associated with the same namespace. And you'll see that you can iterate much faster, release, and make changes much easier once you start embracing the model of multiple packages. So for example, something like Apex, there's about 30% of Apex that one of our large partners said is stuck in global Apex because they can't refactor or get rid of them. With the model of multiple packages sharing the same namespace, you can use public Apex for most of your logic, which significantly simplifies things. On the installation time side, we are investing a significant amount of effort to ensure that when you have an App Exchange listing, you can make it map to a set of packages. Not only that, you can specify pre- and post-install scripts. You can define transaction boundaries, essentially help you make the installation experience much seamless. And there are aspects of it that I'm talking that is already there in the Summer 17 pilot that I'll be talking about. And there are things like installation experience that we'll be building in upcoming releases.
So one of the other things that we're going to do is we're going to support a more modern feature branch model. Currently, if you're a managed package developer, you know it's pretty much waterfall. You can't develop two features independently and test them independently easily. So with the new model, you'll be able to do standard feature development, test your features independently, merge them back into the main branch, and then ship them when they're both ready to go.
And I want to spend some time on manageability because this is where I think we are innovating significantly compared to first generation packaging. Manageability is the set of rules that we impose when you're doing managed package development to ensure that when you distribute your package to thousands or tens of thousands of customers, the upgrade process is seamless, that you don't break customers' arcs. So once you ship the first version of your package, we lock certain things down. So for example, you can modify page layouts in a subscriber arc, but a subsequent upgrade of your package will not contain any changes be applied in the subscriber arc. If there's a permission set, or if it's a workflow rule, or a lightning page, those changes can be made only in the development side, but not on the subscriber side. And these rules work well, but the issue with them is it's one size fits all. Salesforce has hard-coded how manageability works, and there's only one flavor of manageability. And there are so many use cases where you want to break yourself free from it and have your own set of things. And we will make incremental progress as we move in that direction. The first flavor of second generation packaging with respect to manageability is the flavor that you're familiar with. It's the managed package model where you have limited flexibility both on the development and subscriber side when it comes to making changes once you push it in a package. And this we are doing one of the reasons for parity, because once we have to start supporting migration from first generation, second generation, we need a model that is very similar to what exists. The next model that I call it A1 prime is a model whereby we have heard many use cases where when you distribute your app to your customers don't make any changes to metadata owned by you. In such a scenario, if customers don't touch your metadata, we want to support the ability to upgrade components even if they are subscriber controlled. So if there are page layouts and you have a model whereby your customers don't touch the page layouts, you can, as part of a package upgrade, upgrade those page layouts. The second, when I talk about 2A, this is something that we are doing primarily keeping in mind customers, but if you're a partner, you should look at this model and see if it works in your use case. And this is a model where when you publish the first version of your package, when you come back and start working on your second version, you have complete flexibility to make any change. You can get rid of stuff, you can add stuff, you can make any changes. Like you can change the data type of a custom field, as an example. But on the subscriber side, everything is locked in. It's locked in the sense that no changes can be made there. So in an enterprise customer use case, this may resonate really well because the IT department that owns a particular app can now make changes, distribute apps, being fully confident that a sysadmin will not go to the org and make changes. But when we spoke to customers, there are many use cases where they want flexibility to make that emergency change directly in production by passing packaging. So we'll offer a flavor of that same package with the ability to keep the components in an unlocked state so that you can make changes and communicate it back to your development team. But your development team will still retain control, that when they push the next version of the package, if the sysadmin didn't talk to the developer, the changes will be overwritten. These two flavors of packaging will help, especially in a customer use case, but there are cases where we think it will be helpful even in a ISV partner use case. And finally, this is something that will start working sometime next year, which is the make up your own rules, which is something that we have heard from you for a long time. It's a non-trivial amount of effort, but we want to provide capabilities for you to define your manageability because you know your packages and your apps way better than we do. So with this, I want to spend some time doing demos, showing you how this looks. So let me hop onto this. So the first command that I'm going to do is to...
It's still showing PowerPoint.
Oh. What do I do?
Take it out of slide mode, maybe.
Oh, OK.
Minimize it.
Oh, maybe.
There you go.
Is this better? OK.
Yep.
So the first command that I'm going to run is authenticating myself into the hub org.
So quick show of hands, sorry. How many people are familiar with SFDX and how the command line works? OK.
Everyone else. OK. So if you're familiar with Salesforce DX, you know that the Dev Hub is the org where you manage your Scratch orgs. It's also the organization that will own all the packages that you develop because there is no concept of a single packaging org owning every aspect of your package. The Dev Hub owns all the packages that you develop as part of the second generation packaging.
The other thing to note about the Dev Hub is that this org never actually contains the metadata that you put in your packages. You're going to interact with that Dev Hub to create your packages, but that Dev Hub never actually stores or sees the metadata itself. Which means it's also, well, it can also be associated with more than one namespace. So if you're coming from an existing standpoint where you have multiple managed packages, you can associate multiple namespaces with the same Dev Hub and put all of your second generation packages in that single Dev Hub. But the thing to note about that is we are not doing any notion of, we'll talk about migration later, but we're not going to do any notion of friends. So you're going to have to get everything into a single namespace to get the benefits of some of the stuff Dilip was talking about.
Yeah. And yeah, you can see that the namespace register here, I've registered a couple of namespaces. So this is the only scenario where you'll have to spin up a developer edition org to just acquire the namespace and link it to the Dev Hub org. You'll never have to go back to this org. This is your way of telling us that you actually own this namespace. So as I move ahead with my demo, let me spend some time talking to you very quickly about this project Workspace. So I'm building a fitness app, and you can see that the metadata associated with it, I've pulled it from my Git. So it's in the source-driven format, the Salesforce DX format that you're all familiar with. The project.json contains the information about the package that I'm developing and also the namespace that I'm working with. There is another JSON file that we use, the package.to-descriptor, which will help in your CI runs because all the parameters that you specify when you create a package version, you can describe them in this JSON file, which makes things much easier as you do development. So with this, let me go ahead and create a package. Creating a package, as I was saying, is something that you can do directly from the CLI. So I go to my terminal again, and I issue a command. So I'm saying I want to create a package. I'm giving a description and associating it with a namespace and giving it a name. And as part of this, it goes ahead and creates a package for me. And the package has a 0HOID that describes it uniquely. In the demo that I'm doing and in the summer 17 pilot that you'll see, you'll work a lot with IDs. As we head towards winter 18, we'll give you two flavors of running most of the commands. You can either work with IDs if that's what you're comfortable with, or you can specify, you can work more with directory names or package names so that if IDs are something that you don't find user-friendly, you can use that. So now let me show you a command that I run to list all the packages. I've ended up building a lot of packages, so you can see that. I think the one thing that we can pause here and see is creating a package in first-generation packaging is such an onerous exercise. You have to spin up a developer edition org, acquire a namespace. Here, it's a command. It's associated with the same namespace. You can easily experiment. I hear a lot of use cases where partners first have a test packaging org with a test namespace that they work with. Then when they're ready with it, they have to finalize it. They'll run some scripts to change the namespace, then push it to the product. None of those things are needed. I have taken the same metadata in the same workspace and created hundreds of packages, and it's very seamless. So it's much easier for you to have this test real package model with, in the new world. The next thing that I want to talk to you about really quickly is creating a package version itself. So creating a package version is very similar to how I did the package. I'll do it as part of a CLI command. And here I want to pause a little bit and show you what I'm doing. So I'm saying create a package version based off of the metadata that exists in my local directory, Fitness Manager. And I'm specifying the package ID for the package against which I want to create the package version. In Winter 18, we'll simplify this further so that you don't even have to specify the ID. Just tell us where your metadata is, and we will find out how to retrieve the package ID. And this is something that will take some time to process. So you can use this to poll and see whether your package version is complete. In this case, it's saying that the package version is in progress, and you'll get to know when it is done. The next command that I want to talk about is listing package versions. And we know that you create hundreds and hundreds of package versions. So seeing just a raw listing of package versions will not be very friendly. So we have provided some filtering capability. So in this case, I'm saying, show me all package versions associated with a specific package. If you can even specify multiple packages and say, show me all the package versions associated with a set of packages that I'm working with that are dependent on each other. And then there are other friendly utilities that we have. For example, you can say, show me all package versions that have been created in the last 10 days. So again, the goal is to make it much easier for you to work with this. So you're working on a package. You have created hundreds and hundreds of beta package versions. And finally, you get to a stage where you want to promote one of them to be a release candidate so that you can list on App Exchange. With first-generation packaging, you will create a new version of the package and mark it as released. Here, you don't have to do that. You will just take one of your existing beta versions and promote it to being released. So in this case, I run this command to show that I have.
Oh, wrong one.
Maybe I took the wrong one. I think I should be fine. So in this case, I have two versions. The 1.0 has already been listed on AppExchange, and the 1.1 is something that I need to promote. And I'll go ahead and promote it with a command. You want to talk about this, Jeff?
You already covered it. I mean, the most important thing is with second generation packaging, the thing you're testing is the thing you're shipping. You don't have to then go and re-upload another managed package. So it's one of the benefits of being able to get stuff out there quickly. You don't have to go through the whole cycle again.
So I run the command, I set it to release, and now when I run the package list command, it says that both the package versions are in release state. So this is something that I want to show. And now let's fast forward. You have launched your first version of your package on AppExchange, and things are going fine. You want your development team to now start working on the second version of the same package. That's when the true power of Scratch org and Manageability comes in. So I have spun up a Scratch org ahead of this demo. And let me open that up. The one thing that I've done there is I've not only created the Scratch org, I've also pushed the metadata for the 1.0 version of the package. But I made one change compared to what you typically do when you create a Scratch org. And that is, when I created the Scratch org, I specified an additional parameter, which represents a package version ID. So I'm saying when you spin up the Scratch org, make sure it is seeded with the manageability rules of this particular package version, which maps to the first version of my package. And we can see how that manifests when I look at this. So I'm opening the Apex classes related to my package, and you can see that they are deployed in this Scratch org in a manageability full state. And the manifestation of that is, so for example, I go to a global Apex class, and I try to change it to public. Since it's already published, it should result in an error. And you can see that it gives a compile time error. And the reason why this is very significant is we did announce and ship branch packaging orgs. Branch packaging orgs only lets you develop with your namespace. But you can go and make any changes in the branch packaging org. And once you deploy that metadata into your packaging org, you start getting all kinds of errors saying that you're breaking all kinds of manageability rules. The great thing about Scratch orgs seeded with manageability is for the first time, we are providing an environment, a development environment, where you can truly work with managed package metadata, which we feel will go a long way in improving your overall productivity of your development team. Now I want to switch gears and talk about this thing that we've been talking about for a long time, which is that with second generation packaging, you will find it far more compelling to break your package into multiple smaller packages that are much easier to manage, iterate, build, ship, and deliver. So I've taken the same fitness manager that I demoed, and I've broken it down into 4 packages. And the SFDX project.json describes that. It has the package directories. I've specified schema to be my default, but there are 4 different packages. So now when you get to the packages themselves, there's a util package, the schema that has most of the things that you would expect to find in schema. In logic, I have classes and custom permissions and remote site settings. And finally, I have my UI package that has everything related to the UI. So the way I've constructed this, the logic package depends on schema and util, and the UI package depends on logic. And the way I'm going to describe that dependency is by going to the logic package, for example. In the package to descriptor, I have dependencies. So here, I'm specifying that this particular package depends on this. And in Winter 18, we'll further enhance it so that you don't have to keep tracking, you don't have to keep specifying dependency before you build each package version. So by specifying this declaratively, we're giving you the power to specify which packages depend on which packages, and then you can use the power of having a common namespace. So you will put most of your, so all of the Apex classes that I've created here are all public Apex classes that are referenced by the Visual Force and Lightning pages that exist in a different package. Along with this, the one thing that I want to show you is that when I now spin up a Scratch org, I provided, okay, so let me look at this. So in this Scratch org, I've not only provided one, but the IDs of all the 4 packages that I'm working with. So I'm working on the second version of my 4 packages, and the development environment that I'm going to set up is containing the manageability rules of all the 4 packages. So unlike the current model where you have to first finalize the beta version of your base package before you start doing any development with extension packages, in this new world, you can have your developers work in a Scratch org. They can make changes across all the packages, pull in the metadata, and do package version creations. You're not constrained to work on one package at a time. So it's your choice. You can still have some kind of isolation whereby you have different workspaces for project workspaces for different packages, but you can also choose to put everything in one large project workspace and do development across packages and not worry about how they get created or built.
So one thing to note about that is Dilip is showing the benefits of developing the same namespace, but we'll still get benefits if you're developing cross namespace, because if the base package you're developing against is in a different namespace and they're using second generation packaging, they can let you integrate to it when it's in a beta form, and you are not constrained by the current rule where you can't develop against a base extension package. So even if you're doing cross namespace development, this should help a lot.
Okay. So I want to spend some time talking about timelines and migration. We're very excited to launch the pilot. This is going to be a by and large open pilot. We'll have a sign-up page that we'll share with you in a day or so. You can go there, sign up for it, and once you sign up, you will get a DevHub org with packaging to enabled. The only constraint is you can develop the packages, but you cannot install them in production instances, because this is something where we want you to play with packaging, see where we are taking it, and give us feedback. During the entire Salesforce DX pilot, there have been so much feedback that we have got that we have incorporated and acted upon. So this is your opportunity to influence us. In winter 18, we will go beta. So at this point, you can use second generation packaging, deploy them, and install them in customer orgs. The plan is to get to feature parity to a large extent with respect to current first generation packaging by spring 18 and provide some sort of migration support. So migration support is something that we'll continue to work on, but in spring 18, the plan, safe harbor, is to have a version of migration support that you can start using.
Okay, so Dilip said this is the whole reason I'm on the stage, is to ease everyone's concerns about migration. So the first thing we want to let you know is that this project is not a success unless anyone that currently has a managed package can come along to second generation package. As well, your customers, they probably won't know the difference. When a lot of what we're doing is fixing the developer side of the development model. On the subscriber side, it looks very, very similar. Once this package is installed, you use the same UI to install second generation packages as first generation packages. So to them, it'll be seamless. The migration will happen under the covers. We assume we can do it via a push if that's how people want to do it. The other thing is, you're going to be able to do it one customer at a time. You can do all customers at once if you want, but the point is you're not going to come in one day and press a button on your release org and you've converted over. You'll have these distinct phases where everyone is right now. You haven't started migration. Then when you start migration, we'll have to put some limitations on how you create the second generation packages for release, because we need to maintain consistency between the two code lines. And then at the end, you'll be completely migrated, you'll be off managed packages, and you'll have the full capabilities of second generation packaging. The other thing we have to talk about is migration, and then there's consolidation. So consolidation is for ISVs that currently have a lot of different namespaces. So we'll also have a plan for consolidating those namespaces into a single one. You'll have to decide if maybe the schema stays in the existing namespace. That's still something that we are open to feedback on, but that's what we think. Customers may move a lot of the programmatic stuff into a single namespace, but leave the schema because their customers may have integrated to those namespaces already. So, but just know that this is very, very, very important to us, and we give you our personal guarantee that we will make it a success for all of you.
Okay. I think we have about 10 minutes. We'll open the floor for Q&A. Go ahead.
So if you've got a package like, version 1, and then you go to like 1.1, are you actually creating, is that 1.1 package the
So when you're doing package development,
The question was, when you do, and correct me, I think this is what the question was. When you're doing a version 1.1 upgrade, is the package for 1.1 a delta of what was in 1.0, or is it the metadata from 1.0 plus 1.1? It's the full set of metadata. It's not a delta update.
So is there the capability to have, some fields from the account object in one part of the packaging structure, other fields from the account object in another folder, another package, we can divide up the objects and we can composite?
Right. So the question is there the ability to split custom fields on standard objects across packages? Yes.
you may want to talk about spidering here.
Oh, the other thing to mention is that first generation packaging, I don't know if you all are familiar with the spider, which is you upload, you add stuff to your package, and sometimes you get some things in there that you don't want. With second generation packaging, the files that you pass up to the server are the files that go into that package. We don't do any spidering. You're not going to get any extra fields that were pulled in because of relationships.
Go for it.
Would a field management in that package?
Sorry, what's that?
Usually you talk about feature management. You can specify what features go to.
Oh, that was yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So feature management is currently available with first generation packaging. As we start developing, as we start releasing second generation packaging, we'll extend the support even for second generation packages. Sorry, yeah.
I'm wondering if like the semantics of what a package is have changed a little bit. It seems like we have the ability to have maybe finer grained packages that are more lightweight, easier to build, more composable. You got some dependency management. Can you guys just talk a little bit about how you think packaging affects, again, like how we think of a package, what the semantics of a package are? And kind of a follow-up question would be, is there any plans for like a public repository of like kind of open source packages, similar to like an NPM or another site, name type, the central repository?
Right. Okay, so the question was, has second generation changed the semantics of what a package is? And that was the first question. The second question was about a public repository of open source code. So we haven't necessarily changed the semantics because you still have packages. We've really changed the access rules. A lot of access in Salesforce is based upon namespace. So if you have two packages in different namespaces, you can't access stuff without making them global. So by combining multiple packages into a single namespace, we give you a lot more control over who gets to see your code, and it gives you a lot of flexibility when it comes to refactoring. The second point is important. It's something we're thinking about. We'd be really interested to hear your ideas on it. There's challenges there if you want to have a shared namespace, because there's confusion about who owns the namespace and how you get development. So there's some issues to work through there, but it is something that we've heard more than once.
I think that's great for the future of this. I mean, what about like transitive dependencies? Is that something you guys have?
We're not supporting them in 2.10. You have to explicitly declare them, but we will get to that.
But you can have multiple levels of dependencies.
Right. The question was about transitive dependencies, so we'll get to those.
First off, thank you guys for listening. This is taking years of feedback and fun on today, so thank you. Regarding the kind of follow-on to that question, today if you have multiple packages, each, as code executes each of those packages, it gets its own set of governor limits. If you consolidate, is a bunch of code going to break?
That is, yes, so the question is about governor limits. Currently, governor limits are segmented by namespace, and as you start combining stuff in, packages that currently work will start to hit governor limits. That's something we're aware of, and we will address. So the code that you consolidate, so the short answer, or to sum it up, is code that used to work in multiple packages will have to work in a single namespace. So we will do what's necessary to make that happen.
Yeah, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. If the customer installs one package, but you have built it internally for different packages,
Yes.
shouldn't we use different names?
Yes. So the question was if we put multiple packages together and list them on AppExchange, should we call them something different? Our working name has been, and we'll take a question from over here next because we've been ignoring all of you. So The working name we've used for that is a bundle. So it's a bundle of packages. So it is a different, container, if you will. And that will come with a bunch of different scripting capabilities and transaction boundary support.
But to add what Jeff said, from a user experience standpoint, we have to do something to let the customer know that you try to install this particular thing. As part of it, we install all these packages. So we need to have some visual depiction that they know, because otherwise, the point you make is very valid, that I try to go to Apex and install something, and now I have 10 packages in my org. We're working on providing the right user experience there.
Okay, let's take someone over here. So the question is, if you choose to leave schema in when you're migrating, the schema would stay in the same namespace. You would just migrate the managed package to a second generation package. No, you would reuse the one, because if your customers have installed your package and they have a bunch of custom objects with that namespace, then they want to continue using it. So yeah, you'd migrate the managed package.
We have multiple packages which are dependent on each other today.
Yep.
So if I want to make common namespace for all of them, do I need to get the new namespace, or can I use the one of the existing namespace for all of them?
Okay, so the question was, can you use an existing namespace for all of the new multiplexers? So very important in the pilot we're doing, don't use your production namespace. Don't just spin up a hub org and get a new namespace. Once you've done that, but in Winter 18, sorry, I get confused with the numbers in the months. In Winter 18, you will be able to use your existing namespace and have multiple second generation packages in the same namespace as your existing managed package. You will not be able to install both of them in the same org. An org can only have the managed package for the namespace or a bunch of second generation packages from the same namespace. Will there be a way to run the security scan? Yes, that's something that, do you want to talk at all about when App Exchange listings will be, or is that still TBD?
So the plan is to get to App Exchange parity in Spring 18, but we are actively engaged with the App Exchange and the security review team to see how that whole process, the ISV program, fits with the stuff that we're doing with second generation packaging. So we'll come out together with a consolidated offering. Go for it.
What types of works can you install?
During the pilot, you can install them in Scratch orgs, and if you have a specific use case, we can install them in Sandbox orgs. But will not support installation of the pilot second generation packages in production orgs, because when we end the pilot, we'll delete those packages.
No. So the short answer is you can only install them in Scratch orgs. If you have a very specific use case, you can email Dilip, and he needs to enable a perm on your sandbox, but we won't allow it in a non-sandbox org. And the reason for that is that we want to gather feedback, but we don't want to be constrained by a data model that we put out. We want to be able to say, okay, at the end of this pilot, we don't have to do a migration step, because that's wasted. We could give you more features instead of doing migration. So that's the goal for this.
I think we'll get to you next. Yeah. So the question was, is packaging, second generation packaging, the development model for non-ISVs? Over the upcoming releases, we're going to invest a significant amount of effort to make that development paradigm become easier and easier. So as part of Winter 18, we are offering flavors of packaging that are more attuned towards customer use cases, and we will continue to go down that path. The question.
So the question is, if you want to develop in a single namespace but have packages that are not dependent at all, that's supported. So you would just have different workspaces. You wouldn't combine them all into a single workspace. You would create your individual packages, and then people could install them separately if they wanted to. But you could have as many completely unrelated packages in the same namespace if you wanted.
So that from the subscriber perspective, still be similar buttons, right?
Yes.
That's correct. They won't be bundled.
Yeah. So to clarify, even though we use this concept of bundles, at the end of the day, from a subscriber standpoint, they will have mechanism to see that these are distinct packages. So even when we run a bundle, we are still installing each individual package. Whether they're related or not is up to you.
Listen, this is amazing work. Thank you for getting on with
Thanks.
this. Assuming that you have an application listing, and now you're looking at your app for the different code bases under C namespace, what's the impact of a patch or a push upgrade in that process when you're looking at the app? How do you manage that? Is there going to be kind of impact on that?
So the question was, what is the impact on the current workflow, such as push upgrades? So when we get to push upgrades for second generation packaging, and you ship something as a bundle, you would be able to either push the whole bundle if everything was updated, or you may just iterate a lot quicker on your UI. So you only want to push your UI part of that bundle. So we will give you the granularity to push subsets of the bundle and not have to do the whole thing.
Just to clarify, you expect us to break it up first, push that version out, and then do user bundles?
So is the question about migration? Okay, so the first step is you would migrate everyone to second generation packaging, and then you would start breaking it up.
Go for it.
Is licensing going to be tied to the individual packages, or does it go for everything?
So the question was, is licensing tied to an individual package or namespace?
So when we get to Spring 18, we want to get to a stage where most of the core capabilities of first generation packaging is available for second generation packaging. So the first iteration of that would have licensing on a package by package basis. But if you look at the feature management that we have developed, it is at a namespace level, not at a package level. And we are working with the team that owns owns the licensing model to see how the ISV licensing that they are building can work across packages associated with the same namespace.
So as far as goes with second gen packaging, the spider goes away, and then you're able to upload the files. So spider's kind of good, it takes forever. When you go to the packaging, you go to dependencies. When you don't include dependencies, where does that error manifest itself? So that you have to go back and
So the typical life cycle is, so the question was, how do you detect dependency errors before upload? Because the spider usually avoids those for you. So in this model, remember, this is a whole flow. And so the first thing you're going to start out with is a scratch org, where you are going to do scratch org development. And as you add stuff, your workspace will be broken up in the way the dependencies are. So in a sense, you're replacing the spider by organizing your code. Currently, you push the whole workspace, so you could actually not catch it until build time, but you would catch it at build time if you had declared something that was not correct in the workspace.
pushing that file now, it's like it's still sort of merge or insert file, right?
So is the question is it a merge or an upsert, and that is in the subscriber org? Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 So SFDX actually we're decomposing the objects now. So the objects and the fields are actually stored separately. So if you create fields, and those are the only things you created on the object, and you do a push, it will only push those fields. It doesn't push the whole object. So
how many sub-packages can you have? So in terms of like, if you have a bundle, right? Let's say that you have multiple packages, one for the UI, one for the model. Can you have sub-packages within that for features?
Okay. So the question is, can you have sub-packages, packages under a package? We are still having a flat model. You can say a package depends on some other package. There's no concept of nesting of packages. We couldn't find any use case compelling enough for that. The way we look at it is packages is your distribution unit. That will still stay. The changes are that you can have multiple packages also with the same namespace. You express dependencies explicitly. And those are two things, right? Whether it is spidering or whether it is package dependencies. We're making things more explicit and declarative versus us detecting and auto-adding and auto-changing things.
So now that we have multiple packages sharing that same namespace, how do we A, split our Apex classes between those packages in the same scratch order? And then B, how does it deal with collisions between class names?
Do you want to? I'll repeat it. So the question was about how do the Apex classes in the same namespace, how do we expect you to organize them, and how do we expect you to avoid collisions? So when you're developing your workspace and you have your scratch org, that will detect the collisions for you. So if you have the same name with the same class in two different directories, you'll get an error. And then as far as how classes interact, anything that you want to share between packages, since they're in the same namespace, they only have to be public. You don't have to make them global. But it's a standard like a dependency model where you have to declare your dependency if you're calling across packages.
I'm still a bit unclear on how you create existing clients to the new package model.
So the question is, how do we convert existing clients to the new packaging model? So the idea is that, and again, this is really, like, don't hold me to any of this, but this is very important, but this is sort of a rough idea of what would happen is you would, at some point you would say, I have a version 1.5 of my managed package. Create me a migration second generation package. The subscriber installs that either via push or manually. It has no functional change. The only thing it does is it modifies the bookkeeping records in the subscriber org. Because if you think about what a first and second generation package in the subscriber org is, it's the same metadata. We're just tracking it in a different way. So once they've done that, they have been actually converted. One of the things internally is that the developer side and the subscriber side are much more clearly separated in the second generation package. So now, when you're in this interim phase, our idea is that you'll be able to create beta packages of your second generation package with whatever metadata you want. But while you're in this migration phase, you will need to, when you upload a first generation package, it will continue to create second generation package for each version. And these are the only things that those subscribers that have already been converted can use. Because if you think we really have to keep those two in lockstep. Because if we let you migrate a subscriber and you go completely in a different direction, we're never going to get you back on the same path. So while you're in this migrating phase, we need to have some control about what is installed in production. Now, having said that, you'll be able to create as many first generation or second generation packages as you want using that same metadata in your CI processes. But we're just really talking about the people that have already been upgraded. Does that answer the question?
Okay. I think we are getting hints from them that we should stop.
Okay.
So thank you so much for
Thank you,
participating in this session. Please sign up for the pilot program. And if you have additional questions, we'll be outside the room. We can continue the conversation. Thank you again.